Like, because some agents are probably brainwashed, right? Like, in a sense, is that, company tell me they must push new launch, and I see wow, okay, now I cannot brainwash that. I believe 100% new launch is always the way to go, right? To be very fair, when I was newer in the industry, I used to make that mistake also.
I mean, me too lah. Me too.
We all been through that phase, right?
We've been through that.
Yeah. Property in 20 is a podcast series that discusses anything and everything related to real estate in episodes of at least 20 minutes or more. And once again, this podcast series is brought to you by Ceekay Soh District. Hi, welcome to another episode of Property in 20, brought to you by Ceekay Soh District. And today, the topic we're talking about here is quite unique, right? We're not just going to talk about new launch, we're going to talk about new launch buyer behavior, right? Now, why are we talking about buyer's behavior? Is because, like, we noticed through our observation, there are a lot of inconsistencies, and there's a lot of times where when we look at what buyers say and what they do is completely different. Right, they may say one thing but do another. And I think along the way, we always find that all this inconsistency, there is a reasoning behind it. And that is why today we'll explore this reasoning and to see whether, are there any truth behind what we're discussing today. All right. So, of course, today I also have with me in this show today, we have Jayden, all right, who is one of the more experienced agents in our team doing new launches, right? So, hi, Jayden.
Yeah, hi. So, thanks for actually having me here today. So, it's been a pleasure to also share, my thoughts of especially those buyers, how they actually felt, or what is the kind of things that they, experience when they're actually down in the show flat and their kind of mindset. So, I think it's a great pleasure to actually share with everyone.
Okay. So, Jayden, I think maybe I'll just be more straightforward, right, to talk about the current market first.
Okay,
because with the current market sentiments, right, are buyers still actively looking to invest in new launches today?
I would say that there is a certain truth to that statement, because if we take a look at the recent launch, Seneca, Botany and all these kind of things, we still see of course a healthy number of sales being transacted on the launch day itself. Of course, we can't compare to back in probably the end of last year, where a lot of projects are selling off on the 80%, 78 to 80% kind of range on launch day itself. But I think the market is still moving very resiliently, and probably, this is just my opinion, why is there a slight slowdown is probably just because of the reaction to the new cooling measures. People are still getting used to the buyer stamp duty and stuff like that. Yeah. So I think with that, when the market actually get used to it, I think eventually it will take leaps and bounds again, just like the old days.
Okay. So one thing that you mentioned just now is that the slowdown recently, buyers are concerned probably because of the cooling measures and whatnot, right? So, by your experience, have we seen similar situation like this before? Because, I think it somewhat feels a bit familiar right now. The market seems to be like this before.
Actually, we do 2018 when there is a cooling measure and, the cooling measure after that, usually they will have a period of probably 3 to 4 months, 3 to 6 months kind of period whereby, especially those first time buyer, when they are sitting on a fence, they are not too sure what actually kind of how the market will perform. Especially those sitting on a fence, what they are hoping for is, after this cooling measure, maybe the price will drop.
Yep.
Maybe the price will drop. But I'm in the industry for about 5 years, and what I've experienced is usually after this cooling measure, I don't really see the price dropping. I would say that the price holds for a period of time because the developers understand the buyer mentality, right? Where they are also not so bullish to actually make a move first. So they are also holding on to the price, waiting for the market to eventually accept the what is. Then what usually happens after cooling measure is when the market decide that, okay, I think this is it, nothing's going to happen, it's not going to go down. Then people start to flood into the market and start buying again. And with this gesture and this movement, right, and eventually developer also saw that, hey, even after this, we did have a slowdown, a cool down period. So now the market is moving again. And this also generate like kind of like a supply and demand kind of thing, because the supply of new launches in today's market is, towards the end of last year, it wasn't as much. Therefore, developer is also like stepping out on their price bit by bit. And I think one thing we also realized that with all these new cooling measures, all the land bids from developer, it's also not slowing down. Yeah, the land prices has been going up. Therefore, the price is also going up. Yeah. So I feel that even in today's market, the buyer is still gonna actively look, in the new launch market today, because if they're gonna miss the boat, I mean, we know what's gonna come next. The next price, the next project will probably gonna launch higher. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a very fair point, right? Because like I noticed that right now in the market, it is indeed a very reactive kind of behavior. Like what you mentioned, right? So whenever there's something, people take a wait and see approach, right? So they will react to the cooling measures and then observe first before they make a move.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which is why like we always see that with new launches, right? I think the old saying from Warren Buffett is very true, right? You be greedy when others are fearful,
Yes,
and
correct.
be fearful when others are greedy.
Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of times we have really observed that like buyers usually, when they are afraid to enter, it's actually the best time to enter for those who, they are courageous enough to do so.
Yeah. And typically those are the group of people that, they are able to capitalize on the market and eventually see the capital appreciation at the end of the day, whether, be it sub-sale or just, stay for a couple of years and sell off their unit. Yeah. So that is also what I experienced.
Yeah. So, but however, when it comes to all these new launches, right, like I think a lot of buyers just have this sentiment as well that agents are always pushing for new launches, right? And the common objection is that they say that, because new launch commission is higher, so that is why you all are pushing for new launches. So the question is that really the case? Is there something that like is inevitable that agent will definitely push for new launch?
Okay, I think that's quite a good question, right? Because, okay, I don't deny that for new launches, the commission compared to resale might be a little bit higher. It may be true to certain development and it may not be true to some projects, right? Because developer, they are appointing agencies to actually incentivize them to market their project. And of course, you don't have to co-broke in a sense, you get what I mean? Because when you have a buyer, you bring a buyer to close directly with the developer. You don't have to, do this profit sharing or co-broking with another agent. Yeah, but then again, why I say that this is a good question is because is the high commission driving force for the agents to bring the buyer to buy a certain unit? I would say that yes and no, because I can't say everybody is like very, holy, in that kind of sense that, I am thinking for my clients' needs and wants. I'm actually sitting them down and see if this really suits them, and I bring them to purchase. Personally, for myself, I don't close project due to the amount of commission that is being offered to me, because I feel that it's my duty to actually sit down with the client to actually understand like their needs and wants, and if that particular project it really suits them. Because if, let's say, financially, this client may not be ready to get a new launch, because we do know comparing new launch versus resale, there will be a slight price gap, right? So, if the client really doesn't, financially is not strong enough to go for a new launch, and we spot the undervalued resale property and has potential a couple of years down the road, then I think that is still a good buy. Because by upgrading or by investing or even by buying private property, new launch may not be always the way to go.
Okay. I think that is where like it makes me very curious, right? Because definitely in this line, there will always be like black sheep in the industry, right? So there will be some that no matter what, they will try to convince the clients that like, new launch the way to go. We have been through so many trainings as well, so we definitely can see that to a certain extent, like company level training, they are trying to put it out there that buying new launch is the best choice for the clients. But what you said, however, is the opposite, is whereby not always, right? New launch is not always the best for the clients. So how do we determine for the client, right, like which is really best for them, like new launch or resale? Maybe you can raise an example for us to, as a reference.
Okay, because I mean for agents, of course, our objective is always trying to close new launch because like the commission is higher as mentioned just now, and you don't need to profit share with another agent, all these kind of things. But this is also one of my personal experience whereby the client only has X amount of budget, right? And as much as we want to preach or new launch because it's new. Okay. Maybe I will put it in like a sense of like a BTO and a resale HDB kind of concept lah. Because a lot of people does know that do know that buying a HDB is almost like a sure win as compared to buying a resale. So if we were to put into a new launch perspective, the risk of buying a new launch and making a loss is way lower, right? But the thing is, there are still a very good resale potential out there if we spot the right project. So if today the clients coming in with only like, for example, 1.5 million budget and looking at only certain location, and we know that in today's market, the new launch, they have already been priced out, right? But if there is a certain resale property that actually, let's say 4 or 5 years down the road, knowing that there are still potential upside or transformation over at that particular area, and if the PSF gap for the resale versus the new launch gap is very, very, very huge, I mean, to capitalize from for another 200 to 300 per square foot growth probably in a span of 3 to 5 years, I would say that this is still a good investment product. Yeah, and I mean, ultimately it suits their investment appetite.
Yep.
Yeah, because there's no way that let's say they are buying for own stay, not truly for investment. I mean, people buy property, of course, it's gonna be like the biggest asset of their life, right? They also don't want to buy and make a loss. So even for own stay, they are a family size of, let's say, 3 or 4. We can't expect them to stay in a 1 bedroom just because we know new launch has great potential. It doesn't suit their need.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's why I felt that understanding their needs and wants is more crucial. And I mean, of course, ultimately, it's also our due diligence and our job to ensure that we are able to spot good properties for them based on our own research. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's very good because like people don't understand that new launches is not always the way to go, right? Some people just feel like, no matter what, like because some agents are probably brainwashed. Right, like in a sense, is that company tell me they must push new launch, and I see really wow. Okay, now I cannot brainwash that. I believe 100% new launch is always the way to go. Right. To be very fair, when I was newer in the industry, I used to make that mistake also.
I mean, me too lah.
We all been through that phase, right?
We've been through that.
Yeah, but having went one big round and looking at the market in a much more complete manner, I can totally agree with you that like, yes, there are certain times whereby new launch is not 100% the answer, right? But of course, not saying that new launch is not good lah. There are still some new launches out there. For some clients, it can be suitable, it can be profitable. Yeah, but then again, like what you mentioned, right? So sometimes we will look at the resale market, right? So it is very common for buyers to compare between new launch and resale.
Yep.
Okay, so putting aside whether which one is more suitable for them, right? I think let's talk about in terms of buyer, their mentality and their typical behavior towards new launch and resale, right? What is your take on the buyer's behavior?
Okay, I think sometimes why buyer felt that they would prefer a resale as compared to new launch. I mean, taking aside where they know about the market or whether if the pricing will appreciate or whatsoever or not, taking that aside, the common mindset of like buyers in the market is they feel that resale is cheaper right? Why should I pay 300, 400, 500 per square foot more than what other people are paying if I were to buy a new launch? Yeah, so that's one. And second is a quicker move in. You get what I mean? Like they do not want to wait. Yeah, so that is actually a lot of mindset from a lot of consumer in the market. But I think one thing that And another thing is because it's not tangible. Because resale is I can go into view the unit, see the quality, and already see what's the surrounding of the development. Yeah, but I think for new launch, it's something that is not tangible. Is I go and see the show flat, I go and see the show unit, virtual tour, drone shot, floor plan, and especially if we are talking about transformation, but I don't see anything there at this point of time. There is only forested areas. So to them is there is a lot of uncertainty. And if I were to put it in a not so nice word, is they don't see like the future. They don't have foresight. They are only looking at whatever that is in front of them right now. Yeah, but I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. Yeah, but I just felt that because of this mental block, they are potentially missing out an opportunity. So just as the same example that I quoted just now, like it's the same BTO versus resale HDB, right? People can go and ballot for oversubscribed BTO estate. It's the same thing. And BTO probably even worse than private new launch in a way, because why? You don't exactly have a show flat. You don't exactly have a virtual tour, right? I mean, the best you can do is you go down to HDB, the gallery, and have like a quick look of how a typical 2-room, 3-room, 4-room, 5-room HDB floor plan is going to be like. But is that going to be like the BTO that you're going to ballot for? It may or may not be true. So, but people are more willing to, commit themselves and ballot for a luck for a BTO instead of, if they have the capability, to try and ballot for a new launch, and they will prefer a resale. Yeah. So I think it's just, I just find that there's inconsistency in that kind of mindset.
A bit of double standards.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I get what I mean also. And I think also the same logic is true that some people question, well, how come the new launch is much more expensive than the private resale? But when they buy a MOP HDB, they're paying so much more than the older resale also.
Yes, correct. So I don't know. Sometimes when I want to, like educate or share my this idea with them, but I just felt that there's this inconsistency lah. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I totally agree with you lah. Because like it seems to me is that these buyers have one set of mentality towards HDB, but they have another set of mentalities for private.
Yes, I do agree.
Yeah, but like by logic, actually it's the same thing ma. Right, like what you said, like BTO, you don't even get to see a showroom, right? You don't even get to see what kind of materials, whatnot. Right? You don't even know you're facing.
Yes, correct. Until you really got a chance to go down to book a unit.
Correct. Which is like, but by then you sucked down already, because like, if you don't get it, you don't get a unit at all, because everybody is queuing and waiting.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to new launches, a lot of buyers are actually in a much more fortunate position. Because you really at least get to see show flat, get to see the finishing, the facing, the model. There is more clarity for new launches compared to BTOs. And even if, let's say, in the future, it's going to be more expensive than the private resale, but people are willing to pay because of the age gap. Yeah, that is the thing that is consistent with HDB market. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, but I noticed that there are some buyers who are still fearful towards new launches, even though it is very similar to buying, for example, MOP HDB. Right? Let's say, for example, MOP HDB resale, maybe they're selling at 700K.
Yep.
Right? But the brand new one is maybe 1 million, 1.1 million. And yet they're still willing to buy that because to them, okay, newer one, right? I'm willing to pay more.
Correct.
Right? But the same margin, new launch versus resale, maybe the same exact price gap of that 300 to 400K, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to pay.
Yep, correct.
Yeah. So that makes me very, very confused, like what exactly is going on. So what do you think is the real reason behind this disparity in their mindset?
Okay, I think first of all I think a lot of consumer in the market, they just felt that they couldn't afford it. Before even speaking to professional like bankers or even like real estate agents ourselves, to actually do up like proper financial calculation. Yeah, because as much as it's so convenient excuse to say that, my budget is 1.5 million. My budget is 1 million. Yeah. But the thing is, sometimes when I ask like consumers, like, actually, how do you all derive this price range that you guys are working on? They just felt that, no lah, because I'm earning this amount lor, then I see my friend, they all also earn this amount, then this is the kind of price budget they are working on and all these kind of things. But little do they know that when I actually sat down and do like the calculation with them, right, they could actually afford more. And of course, when I sit down with them doing like the financial calculation, I don't just like do your calculation based on your total debt servicing ratio. I will actually do out like the MSR and the TDSR, the mortgage servicing ratio, and the total debt servicing ratio, to actually understand and see where they stand financially, to see if they are really being priced out in today's market or not. And surprisingly, actually, a lot of my clients, when I done up the calculation with them, right, then they realize, actually my purchasing power is not just 1.2 million. I can actually buy up to 1.7 million property. Yeah. So I think that is one of the main reason what is stopping a lot of consumer that haven't spoken to any professional, and thinking that they are being priced out in today's market.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the opposite is also true, because there are some people who overestimate what they can afford also.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think that is even more common actually, because like they think, today I can buy 2 million, but actually turn out it's 1.5.
Yeah.
So that is where, like, that's why for buyers, it's very difficult for them to ascertain whether, what is their true affordability. I think one of the key issues is also because like the market keep changing, right, in terms of the policies wise, your buyer's stamp duty and TDSR, like all these have been revised recently, loan to value as well. Yeah, so that's where our advice here is that, like, don't take it for granted that, like, you have so-called done your sums lah, right? That's why for us, that is where we are stepping in to help clients to advise.
Yeah, I think another reason is also because I think you brought a very good point, like loan to value and the buyer stamp duty with all the recent policies and measures being adjusted, right? So especially those that are sitting on the fence, they are kind of worried, like, hey, actually the buyer stamp duty increase, then can I actually afford or not? But if you sit down and do the calculation with them, right, then you realize that, like for example, the 3%, 4%, 5%, or even 6% buyer stamp duty adjustment, if you were to compare to the previous policy, the difference is actually not a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, and even for the loan to value as well, because I don't know about other agents lah, but for myself, when I work with them, let's say, if based on their 75% loan to value, their maximum purchase price is 2 million, is it necessarily for me to actually bring them out to buy a 2 million property, or as long as it actually suits whatever their needs and wants, we can actually also look at a 1.5 million, 1.6 million, 1.7 million, you know.
It's not a must to stretch them to the max lah.
Yeah, correct. So it's really, really not so scary lah, until you really check out the sums and work with, I think, a professional consultant or a real estate agent. I think that will actually change like the buyer experience or how they feel when they're looking in the market.
But I think in terms of this, right, like a lot has got to do with buyer, I believe, is their perceived mistrust towards agents. Feeling like, hey, if I let you know all my finances, then you would take advantage of it, whereby, maybe you push me to the maximum and ask me to buy something. Like you said, maybe if the max purchase price is 2 million, you bring me to buy 1.9 million plus, like almost to the brim, or even at 2 million, or ask me to stretch a little bit more, right? So for that reason, I think it's quite common that a lot of buyers, they tend to underquote their affordability. Like for example, if they tell me, okay, like this is the amount they have, whatever, I calculate, okay, your max purchase price, let's say for example 2 million again. If I show them 1.7, 1.8, for some reason suddenly one fine day, right, they tell me, hey, let's look at something that is 2.2, 2.3. I'm like, you sure, bro? You sure? I thought we calculated maximum is 2. They say, nah, actually I have some more. Right? So I think that is something that is very, very commonplace, and I realized that, okay, so maybe sometimes it's just, they don't want to show hand to agent. I think that's very, very common.
But I think that is also good, so that at least we know that there is room for us to
work around.
To work around. So I think that is not too bad if they want to be reserved. But usually those people that they are reserved with their budget, right, it's also slightly easier to work with, because eventually they will be opening up themselves to you. Like, I mean, you bring them to certain viewings, sometimes we can also feel it already, like for example, like they're actually in pocket budget is 2.5 million, but because they are being reserved in front of you, they tell you that their budget is 2 million, right? So you bring them to see a 1.7 million property, 1.8 million property. Like sometimes I can feel that they are not excited.
Yep.
So after viewing, then we can ask them like, hey, actually after these 2 weekends of viewing, like, how do you actually feel? They might also be tired already, right? So they will probably also tell you like, actually the one that we see, I think the size not so good. Then, a little bit old. We actually prefer older one. Then, I mean, generally for myself, I ask questions or I will actually talk to them, or I will just say, hey, I mean, if we were to look at whatever criteria that you actually just gave me again, yeah, then we might need to work on a wider range but because previously you told me your range is this only Yeah, then they will also probably show hand already or maybe revert the card let you know that you want to all in or fold, right? So they will just okay maybe we can look at somewhere slightly higher than that.
I think, of course, it's always a bonus if the clients do show hand and review that actually they have more to work around with, right? Because I think in today's market, the challenge is there's a lack of supply. So
Yes.
whenever we work within the so-called initial budget or price range, right? Then when we really got nothing to show already, then okay, saving grace is actually they still have a bit more funds somewhere they can go and stretch a bit more. That would be the best case scenario.
Yep.
But I think in today's situation, however, I do see a lot of people are being priced out of the market and they are really being squeezed dry, not because of agents, but because of the market condition. Right? It's a market condition that's forcing them to squeeze out more. Okay, especially when it comes to new launches. Nowadays, we are seeing at least 2,000 PSF on average now, almost everywhere.
Yep.
Right? So with this rising costs, this younger generation is increasingly being priced out. So what would be your advice for, let's say, like the current Gen Z generation, right? The below 30s right now. What would be your best advice for this group of people?
Actually, what you say is true. Like a lot of younger generation people, they have been priced out or they actually have limited financial resource because especially if they just started working, their CPF wouldn't be, as thick or as much to afford. So, I mean, if you were to ask me, there are probably two options. One is if they really, or rather three options if they really, really want to have a place on their own, and financially it's they have limitation, probably renting a place on their own might be one. Yeah, at least we know that there is it's not a huge or long commitment because I can take out a 1 year lease or 2 year lease experience, staying at myself and see what comes down the road in this 1 or 2 years if I can do anything to my property portfolio. Second of all, it will be back to resale because like I mentioned in the earlier part of the conversation, right? Like new launch may not be always the way to go because of the financial capability and the limitation. Yeah, so ultimately everybody needs a shelter above their head. If they really, really need it, then I think we can always start somewhere first. Starting somewhere is better than not starting at all. Right.
Agree.
Yeah. So if today, let's say like their dream location is potentially maybe staying at District 9, for example. Yeah, right. So, but with their income and their CPF at this point of time is definitely not some. It's not like an immediate thing that they can actually fulfill. Then I think what they can do next is my third option. Is probably focus on saving up. Yeah, focus on saving up and not this kind of instant gratification things because things may eventually fall into place. And, it's not an easy feat to move into District 9 straight away. Like within colleagues ourselves, we also know some of our friends, like those that are staying in District 9, they don't immediately stay in District 9. They have to start somewhere, right? They probably start from a resale HDB or they start from an OCR, out of core region property, even a new launch, a smaller size one, to make that capital appreciation, that profit, to build their down payment wealth, where they can go a couple of rounds before they eventually land at their dream location or dream house. Yeah.
I think what you said is very true, is that in terms of this, it's better to start somewhere than not to start at all, right? And I think that not just is saving up important, I think it's also about in terms of thinking about how they can increase their income as well, right? Because how much you can save is dependent on how much you earn.
Correct.
Yeah, so if your income doesn't grow, there's only so much you can save. Yeah. No matter how people try to save, right, I don't think it can catch up to the speed of how fast property prices are going. Yeah, I think which is exactly the scary part. Which is why nowadays we see a lot of trend whereby it is the parents who actually help to so-called fork out the down payment for their children. I think it's very common nowadays. And I can only fear for the current generation of parents because they are the one who right now is sweating, right? It's like, oh my God, like everything is going to become so expensive. By the time their kids 10, 20 years later, how can they afford something? Yeah, so now we live in a very increasingly, I would say challenging, right, generation where everything is going up and yet people's knowledge of, I would say, financial literacy is not there. Yeah, they don't know about like how can they gain more financial freedom, how do they invest, how do they multiply their wealth. I think this is the bigger issue with this, generation now. Yeah, whereby there is a shortfall in terms of the rising like cost of living versus where they are right now. There is that very big disparity.
I think some is also because like the constant wait and see mentality, then also resulting them in being priced out, because there will always be a group of people whereby they are hoping that the price will come down. Then 3 years later, you go back to this client or friend, like, hey, so we waited about 3 years already, so you changed your job already, you save up already, so are we ready to make a move? Then they will tell you, well, actually now I also think I cannot afford. Then if I would have made that move 3 to 4 years ago when you spoke to me, right, things will be different. So that's why you actually brought a very good point where sometimes saving up and all these kind of things, we would not be able to catch up to the speed of how Singapore property price trend is going upwards. Yeah. So I think especially for those that are sitting on the fence, you guys really need to speak to a consultant or an agent to actually see if whatever that you have at this point of time, are we able to work something out? Because if not, I think the opportunity will become slimmer and slimmer moving forward.
Yes. So I think to end off today's session, I feel that we have really covered a lot on the buyers' mentalities, right? Discussing about their mindset and their behavior. And I think, like it is my sincere hope that buyers, whether they are listening to this podcast or not, we don't know. Of course, we hopefully more and more people get to listen to our podcast here. But it is our genuine wish that we can reach out to as many consumers as possible.
That's right? For sure.
Yeah, we want to, reach out to them in a sense is that like for them to be educated, for them to understand that it's not just about buying a house. Right? A house can be so much more than just a shelter, especially in Singapore, whereby, it can be somewhere that we can grow our wealth, that we can multiply it and then, upgrade from there. Right, and to look after our next generation in terms of their future affordability. I think that is ultimately what we want to push forth because a lot of Singaporeans still feel like, it's okay, my house don't need to make money, I just need a roof over my head. But then 15, 20 years later, who is the one suffering is themselves and their next generation who suffers. Yeah, so I feel like hopefully we will really, really get a lot of people to understand this point.
I think another thing is because the consumer, they will feel obligated when they meet an agent or they call an agent to actually seek out advice like this. So I think the message I want to put across is actually do not worry to approach like ourselves or even if you have real estate friends and all this kind of thing, I think do not be afraid to approach them. Not every agent out there will make you feel obligated that, oh, you meet me now, you must transact with me now.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's always good to have a second opinion, to actually ask a professional out. Then I think we see what we can do about that.
Yep. Of course, as mentioned earlier on, there are some black sheeps in the industry and so
Yes,
on.
definitely.
So that does make it a little bit challenging for some of the consumers out there. So, but nevertheless, I think right here, of course, in Ceekay Soh District, what we really pride on ourselves is really giving our best and sincere advice to clients. Yeah, so that's where hopefully, for some of the clients out there, if you have any, questions, can always hit us up and then we'll be more than happy to advise.
Yep.
All right, so that will be the end of today's episode. All right, so once again, thank you very much, Jayden, for being on the show. And then for the rest of you here, all right, this is the end of this episode, and we look forward to see you in the next show. See you.